Welcome to Speaking of Strong Style, where we discuss the events, news, and issues surrounding New Japan Pro Wrestling. I am Stephen Conway. With me, as always, is Jeremy Finestone. We are contributors to the Fight Game Media Network, and we are excited to be here today to talk about another big week in New Japan. Weren't a ton of shows. However, the show that we had was very newsworthy. We had a Declaration of Power event at the Ryogoku Kokujikan Sumo Hall there in Tokyo. And Jeremy, lots to talk about on this, and the fallout is going to be very interesting and all around good show, but a very newsworthy afternoon.
You know, when the show was announced and called Declaration of Power, I was like, what does Declaration of Power even mean? What the heck? Well, after we watched the show, everyone declared their power in New Japan Pro Wrestling. So I guess that was what it did.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we had angles, we had announcements that we weren't necessarily expecting, and some things. We also had a tribute to Antonio Inoki at the beginning of the show. That kicked it off. So we're going to go over a bunch of things from this. Now, we wanted to touch on a couple of items before we started getting into the match-by-match results. First of all, they announced just what wrestling needs is another new title. Now, they have announced this whole thing. They brought everybody out there for this ceremony. This was just as they came back from intermission. A new title that is supposed to signify the relationship between New Japan and TV Asahi, which is their television network where their show airs in Japan. And TV Asahi has gone through some name changes over the years, but it's been the same network. The name has changed, same network, really since the beginning for New Japan, TV Asahi. So, and they have created a new television title. They gave us some details about what this would mean, although we're going to get into the bracket for this. Of course, it's going to be a tournament to determine the first champion. Some of the things they said about this title were contradicted a little bit by the names that were in the tournament, but we're going to get to all that. We're going to get into the bracket because after Declaration of Power, because Declaration of Power leads to it, and it'll just make a little more sense to have it flow chronologically in that sense. But Jeremy, they announced this championship. It'll be 15-minute time limit matches. So we're looking at similarly to what the high speed title is for Stardom. Younger wrestlers, the inference here being it's kind of an underneath title. It's something that some of the younger guys are going to be going after, new stars being made. They mentioned that some of the title matches will be in towns that don't normally get title matches. It's a fair point that most of the title matches end up in Tokyo, Osaka, Sapporo, Hiroshima. Some of the smaller towns that they run regularly might see some of these TV title matches. And the matches will be broadcast for free on social media. So, again, it's a little way of giving a free match out to the fans, something that maybe will draw their eye. And, of course, if you're going to give it out for free like that, it's going to be something high-speed, exciting, internet-friendly, as well as television-friendly. You know, a shorter, full-speed-ahead match is kind of the style they're going for. The tournament's going to begin this coming weekend. New champion will eventually be crowned at Wrestle Kingdom. What are your thoughts when you heard that there was another belt coming?
So when I first heard on social media about this, I thought they were revealing the title for Stardom. I thought this was the Stardom title that they were going to win for the IWGP tournament going on at the crossover. Right. And because I saw bits and pieces on Twitter before I ever watched the show on Monday morning. I watched a show, and it's a new title, and it's a sprinting title. Okay. Not what I was expecting. Not what I was thinking was high on the list of priorities and making sure that New Japan really tapped that vein. But hey, I'm not opposed to it. Although when I look at the bracketing, like you mentioned, I don't know who would be the person to win this, because the person that I would think to win it would be like a guy like Hiromu Takahashi that is going to come in there and just basically sprint out, go heavy, probably not go the time limit, but get all the shit in. You know what I mean? And fan favorite. That's the kind of thing I was thinking, but we didn't see that. That's not the brackets.
It's not the bracket at all. And it's a 15-minute time limit, full speed ahead title that almost infers a junior heavyweight aspect to it. You know, that's
Mhm.
kind of like that would be their style of wrestling, and we're not getting that either. And we're going to go over that bracket. Like I said, it's gonna play into things later.
Well,
But
spoiler: Hiromu's not in it.
Hiromu's not in it. Yeah, and you know, it's curious the way it's been handled here. We'll see how it goes. The only thing I ask from championships, because general agreement is there are a few too many in wrestling right now. I just want them to mean something different and not just have the same kind of guys interchangeably going after. You know, that was kind of the criticism of what's the difference between the never open weight and the Intercontinental. And of course, they merged those two. But what is the difference between like the never open weight and the U.S. title? What I was hoping with never open weight is they put the word open weight in there, but junior heavies hardly ever even compete for it, let alone win it or hold it for any length of time. I'd like to see that, by the way. I think Hiromu Takahashi is a perfect never open weight champion. It's a guy who has credibility beating heavyweights and has done it in the New Japan Cup, but they don't do that. It's just kind of another, just another title for the heavyweights to fight over. This one, they're going to try to do something different with it, and I appreciate that. So if there's like the King of Pro Wrestling title, it was mostly comedy when Toru Yano had it. It's gotten a little bit better in that sense since Taichi and Shingo Takagi have held it. It's a stipulation title.
It's a weeble wobble sometimes. It's serious. Sometimes it's not.
But they don't do a lot of stipulation matches in New Japan. But King of Pro Wrestling is a stipulation match title. Okay, well that's something a little bit different. That I'm okay with that. The open weight title, I think like I said, they have kind of kept it with the heavyweights. But this is something that could be different if it's done correctly. And it is not a bad point that some of these small towns that only get these matches with 6-man, 8-man tags on them, or just a card full of tag matches and a Young Lions match to lead it off, every once in a while, giving these guys a title match at the top, probably good for business and attendance, which hasn't been great since the pandemic. It's taken a while for attendance to come back. And I feel like it will come back because the product is still good. But I think this is something that might help those small towns, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah, it's a house show title. It should probably only change hands at those house shows. I'm not necessarily sure it should be a title that they're heavily defending at Wrestle Kingdom because those matches, if it really is saved for the small shows, like save them for the small shows, like save that main event for the small Oda towns and such that we have that just don't get the Tokyo Dome matches. They only get the precursors. You're not getting the same precursors by this match, but it's an attempt to mitigate a level of like a ceiling to the show that you're not going to get these title matches, or maybe you get a U.S. title match, or maybe you get a never open weight to main event the show. But now you could have a guy that is doing open challenges at every show, and then all of a sudden, like Sonata comes out as a surprise challenger to the title, and anything could go, anything could happen, and everyone's like, "Oh, hey, the upper mid card guy's challenging, and he might win." Like, there's no consequence to Sonata like winning this title if he were like a mid card guy in any stable. This is like just a free belt to wear, and I hope they treat it with value, but at the same time, like, there's a ceiling to this. And when we talked about the Stardom IWGP title and how they got their top talent vying for it, and it's only going to be as important as the first people who wear it and how they treat it, this is going to be a lot the same way. And it already feels like a few levels below that. Kind of a junior heavyweight TV title is kind of like adjacent to where I'm kind of looking at this title right now. And yeah, it seems like a lot of titles, but New Japan has to do stuff to engage the audience, and this title isn't about us per se.
And we talked about earlier, you said it best, the person makes the title, not the other way around, especially when one is just being established. And when we go over the bracket a little bit later, like I said, I want to talk about Declaration of Power and the results before we get into that bracket, but you will see some big name people in this. So they are at least putting it forward as a prize that major stars want to win. That's always helpful. we'll see how it goes after that. The belt itself looks like a championship ring, and they even mentioned that in the commentary. The belt itself, for the belt marks out there, looks a little bit like a ring.
Like you won a Super Bowl,
like a Super Bowl ring or something. It was interesting. It was unique. I haven't seen anything else quite like that. That design. So.
Big and punchy. Big and punchy.
Big and punchy. Yeah, it's would not look out of place on the finger of MJF. Moving on from that, we had a very interesting thing. Speaking of championships, the current never openweight champion is Karl Machine Gun Anderson. That in and of itself isn't so interesting, except he showed up on Monday Night Raw, and so which sent the Twitter universe into a blaze. It did.
Not only did he show up on Monday Night Raw, New Japan Pro Wrestling acknowledged that he showed up on Monday Night Raw.
You can see there at the very top, NJPW World retweeted this, as did Jay White on his official, and Jay White stays in character on his social media. So this is intriguing for a few reasons. Now, there's all kinds of speculation. However, here we are. You see Gallows and Anderson. They came out to help AJ Styles, Bullet Club buddies, right? Fight off Finn Balor and Judgment Day. And of course, Finn is one of the original members of the Bullet Club, one of the founding members of the Bullet Club. So what does all this mean that NJPW World and Jay White are retweeting these things and promoting it? Jay White even did a little video promo on his social media where he said part of his plan is for Bullet Club to take over the whole world of wrestling. It's intriguing to me, Jeremy, that this is going. Now, of course, let's calm down a little bit. First of all, the IWGP was never mentioned on Raw. It just wasn't. It wasn't spoken of. It wasn't mentioned on there. They have hinted for a long time about what this relationship is between Gallows, Anderson, Styles, and Finn Balor without using the words Bullet and Club very carefully. They were, they've been very careful about that. But there does seem to be something, because Anderson is still set to defend that never openweight title on November 5th against Hikuleo. Hikuleo even tweeted, "Are you hiding, bro?" When this happened. You go back to the States. Right now, it looks like Gallows and Anderson are WWE wrestlers, with Anderson holding an IWGP title, and still looks like he's going to defend it on November 5th against Hikuleo. So we might have a WWE wrestler defending an IWGP title on a New Japan show. That in and of itself is intriguing. Now, where do you think this goes, Jeremy, as far as, is this a huge deal, or is this simply a one thing? Because I keep going back to, this could be as simple as Karl Anderson saying, New Japan has been great to me and always has been great to me, and it's always going to be a second home to me. It would mean a lot to me if I can drop the title the right way and not just abandon it and put over whoever Ghetto wants me to put over. And perhaps this is Triple H just understanding that more than his father-in-law would have, and saying, okay, go do your one last match and drop your belt. It could be as simple as only that. Even that, to me, Jeremy, is a big step forward for WWE in how they handle relations with other companies, which has always been, screw them. Mm-hmm. None of that counts. None of that matters. You're in the big leagues now, kiddo. So even that is progressive for WWE. Do you think there's anything more to it?
So if you're asking me if this is news or if this is noise, I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
The news that came out, that from my understanding, is that Gallows and Anderson were working without a contract in New Japan, according to Dave Meltzer, so that they were able to do this. And for whatever reason, New Japan felt trusting that they could, do business with them, because if nothing else, Karl Anderson and Luke Gallows are businessmen. Like, they're hunting the money. They're nothing personal, bro. Everything about what they do is all about the next paycheck, the deal, whatever they're going to cash out on.
And it should be, no
doubt. What got?
And it should be, by the way.
Sure,
they aren't young men, and if they can get a hefty contract, go get it.
Yeah, and talent does not predicate the money that you make, and I will leave it at that. Sometimes
Karl Anderson's good.
Karl Anderson is very good, but the fact that these guys were sought out the way that they were was a bit surprising to me.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that was because everybody is just getting swept up no matter where they go, and battle arcs being drawn. When it comes to Triple H, I think this is testing the waters. There is a cooperation aspect where this is a small step to, extend an olive branch and say, hey, we can work together with this. They can come into our show and we will not disrespect your title or the plans that you have going forth. We have about 3 weeks, including Karl Anderson likely not being able to go to Saudi Arabia because he'll be in Japan, or maybe otherwise, because I believe the Autumn Attack is on the 5th and the Crown Jewel is on November 6th. So are they going to be doing matches here or there? Like, are they going to do a six-man, like Judgment Day versus the Styles Club? Something like that? I don't know. But there is a belt on the line. I would be surprised if Hikuleo doesn't win this. But at the same time, like, I hope he does, and maybe the business can be done, because then my dream of Gallows versus Hikuleo at Wrestle Kingdom might still happen.
Well, it's even if it doesn't happen at Wrestle Kingdom, like I said, this is something that WWE has been dipping its toe in the water of. Now, I joked for when they had Miggy was the Impact Women's Champion and participated in the Women's Royal Rumble. I am still convinced to this day that Johnny Ace and Vince McMahon, who were in Power, had no idea she held that title when they called her. So when they hired her, and so they just said, by the way, I just want to mention this, and they're like, well, if she's here, I guess we'll just go ahead and mention Impact. What's the harm? Right. I honestly think that's true. So that was a bit of a weird moment there. But we are in an era right now where I think Triple H might be, like you said, dipping his toe in the water of maybe, and it's good for free agency, isn't it? I mean, really, it's that we talked a lot about Cody's introduction at WrestleMania was a big moment for WWE. It was to show, now that they have competition, all these potential free agents, you will be respected. We will not treat you like, oh, welcome to the big leagues. You've never been a star before, but now you are because you're with us. People bristle with that. And it ran a lot of people out of WWE toward AEW. But now people are looking at that just going, they didn't change him. They didn't turn him into a wrestling plumber. They didn't, all this stuff is like, if they show you that, look, we're going to respect what you're doing with other companies now. That's, again, a big step forward from the Vince McMahon regime. And it could be just that if they wanted to make it a thing where guys can kind of go back and forth a little bit and work a little with New Japan. I'm very deeply skeptical of that, Jeremy, because New Japan doesn't usually work with more than one company in any one place, and they're tied in with AEW.
I mean, the cachet of goodwill, people don't want to hear this, but the cachet of goodwill with WWE is increasing among fans and companies across the thing. AEW and WWE are going to be in a war for a very long time unless something changes. But WWE just kind of trying to ingratiate itself into New Japan's, relationship. I'd do it. Yeah. There's no tampering, there's no contract. It's all just agreements and handshakes and coordination. So we have one night, we have one segment.
Right.
We have these guys back, and it seems like they're not going anywhere for the foreseeable future. Are they here for a month, like a Kevin Nash thing, or are they here for 3 months, or is this going to end up being like a 1, 2, 3 year contract? We don't know, but it does definitely seem like things have changed in terms of how these contracts work, who's on the table, who's not. And that kind of leads into the next guy that I kind of wanted to bring up, which is a guy that we talked about before, feeling pretty confident that he wasn't going anywhere in New Japan, and that would be JONAH.
Yeah. And there you see it right there. That was the moment where you started to doubt a little bit, isn't it? Because we're going to talk about the match between Okada and JONAH. We'll just say off the top that Kazuchika Okada pinned JONAH in their big match, beat him with a Rainmaker in a hell of a good match. And we're going to talk about some of the storytelling that was done in that match. This felt a little bit like a temporary or a qualified farewell. What I mean by that is this was a thing where after the match, JONAH, they looked each other in the eye. It was a hell of a great match. They shook hands. JONAH, did the whole 1-on-1. We've wrestled each other twice. I got you, you got me. And then in the post-match comments, JONAH made mention that he would love to come back. He's not finished. TMDK is certainly not finished in New Japan. We know that. And the other point that he made was that he wanted to come back but didn't know when. It sounded like a man who was keeping a lot of options open, which is an intelligent thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
And this felt a little bit like perhaps writing JONAH out of the script for a little bit. And like I said, we'll get into the storytelling of the match right there. But this felt to me like a guy who might not be part of New Japan going forward, at least for a while. What do you think?
I definitely got the vibe that that's what they want you to think. I feel like his unceremonious departure from WWE left a lot of hard feelings on his end. And if it is more business and pantomiming to the audience about his decisions, and we just don't know. I'm fairly certain he's already made up his mind about where he's going next, and we just don't know yet. I would assume that he's staying in New Japan because the sense that I get from JONAH is that is a man whose personal accomplishments outweigh a lot of the financial rewards that would come with it. And he probably thinks that the finances will come with the awards if he just keeps going with the way that he is. That's my personal guess, and I know nothing when I say that. But yeah, when I read that, it just means like I lost. I thought my momentum was going to take me all the way to the top right now. I'm going to regroup and I'm going to come back. And sure would be great if he destroyed Okada at New Year's Dash.
I'm hoping for that too. We've talked about it week after week about what we want to see happen. And of course, the question is WWE again, a lot of goodwill with WWE. Triple H is in his honeymoon period running that company. He hasn't had time to piss anybody off yet. Mm-hmm. Tony Khan is just running into the time where he is his decisions are starting to piss people off who feel like they should be the main event. And why aren't I? And why not me? Paul's going to run into that. That's going to happen eventually. Right now, nobody's poo smells bad, right? But and right now everybody is just sitting there thinking, well, Vince fired me, but Paul's in charge now. So, there's all these thoughts. So, and it's an intelligent decision to keep your options open. It just is. I mean, right now there are, for JONAH, I would say at least 3, probably more, very viable companies that can pay him decently right now. So, and go ahead and get the best deal out of it. So if he does come roaring back, if this storyline with Okada was that Okada just has to overcome a monster on the way to Jay White, okay, that's fine. I mean, JONAH can always come roaring back, and it is only 1-1. He can come back and say, I've beaten you, and you've beaten me, yes, but we're tied, bro. Like one more to go. That's right there waiting for him if he does come back. I hope he does. I think he's just the right type of monster for New Japan. WWE was nuts to let him go in the first place, but they did. And I didn't understand it at the time. I don't really understand it now. And I think anybody in WWE that's paying attention to New Japan are probably just saying, how did we have this guy in our locker room and do nothing with him? And, that could bring people around. Who knows? But the options were left open for both JONAH and the company here, I felt, with the way this was handled. If he goes, then there's kind of a sort of end to the story. If he stays, you can always bring it back. I think it was intelligently booked.
Yeah, it was smart. I would have liked to see JONAH again in New Japan more than anything else.
Yeah.
But if I had to order it, I would say I'd like to see JONAH in New Japan, then WWE, and then AEW. And I think that's the order that he would best be suited at each of those companies. And, but man, I hope whatever decision that he makes, he ends up being happy with it.
It's been interesting too, because either way, TMDK is staying. That was made pretty clear. Bad Dude Tito and all. I mean, just all of TMDK. I think Shane Haste, I think, is probably going to be there for a while too. I don't think those guys are going anyplace. So, and that's good news. Those guys have worked very hard and have done very well in their time with New Japan. So 100%. Whatever happens there. I'm glad they're staying. I also wanted to mention too that the other thing about the whole the Jay White tweeting that whole thing, when Gallows and Anderson were in WWE the first time, it's not like they ever left Bullet Club, but it was kind of officially left. Nudge. But yeah, it was kind of a nudge. This one is like they're very specific that they're still a part of it. Like that this is a Bullet Club thing happening. So intriguing time to be a wrestling fan with all these things crossing over. But we'll see. But yeah, JONAH, we hope to see him back because he's been really made to order for what New Japan could really use right now. He's the kind of guy we could really use freshening up these main events. So.
Definitely a catalyst for exciting times.
So that was only our semi-main event. There were other matches to talk about, Jeremy. We're going to get to them now. Declaration of Power. Hell of a good show on Monday. Bank holiday in Japan this week, 3-day weekend, which is why the show was on Monday. It happened at Sumo Hall. Attendance for this one, 4,059. Again, talked about it. It's just an okay number, really, for Sumo Hall.
A loud 4,059.
Yeah. I mean, considering they couldn't cheer, they made up for it in enthusiasm. They were into the show. The fans that were there were into this. And this was a bad night if you were a champion, with one exception. This was the booking on this one definitely to create doubt going into as to who the top person is going into Wrestle Kingdom season and then the tag team tournaments and everything. But I really enjoyed it. It started off with Ren Narita returning from excursion, and he is back in New Japan full-time, back in Japan. He's always been in New Japan. He was on an NJPW Strong training in Los Angeles with his mentor Katsuyori Shibata. And you're going to be hearing that a lot because he has gone full Shibata, Jeremy. That has been, we wondered what he was he going to get a new outfit? No, sir. Is he going to get a new haircut? No, sir. It's like they decided, okay, the part of Katsuyori Shibata will now be played by Ren Narita on this one. They named him the Son of Strong Style. He came out in Shibata's outfit. He teamed up with Robbie Eagles and David Finlay. So he's in there with Hantai and Chaos. They defeated a Suzuki-gun trio of El Desperado, Yoshinobu Kanemaru, and Doki.
Pretty sure we called that one.
It wasn't too difficult. They telegraphed the winner of this one. Doki's going to be the guy that does the job here, and he did to that terrific overhead belly-to-belly into a bridge that Narita does. Really good-looking move. No formal affiliation yet. He's not officially a member of Chaos. He's not officially a Hantai guy, and but he is a good wrestler. He is a strong. He's a strong talent. I think he's really good. What were your impressions of his first day back doing this second coming of Shibata gimmick?
The fundamentals were very good. The match was definitely designed to get him over, but this match was weird for me because a little bit of peel back the layer here. Yesterday I watched Declaration of Power. Then I watched New Japan Strong. And then I had to watch Raw because of the Gallows and Anderson. So it was a very long day. And one of the first matches I watched was this Ren Narita six-man tag. And I'm like, okay, let's watch this. Let's figure it out. Let's see what he's got. And he looked great. He still looked like a young lion with the black, even though he's supposed to be wearing the Shibata tribute. There's not a whole lot that takes him from looking like a young lion still. But that is almost deceptive, in which he doesn't wrestle like a young lion. He's way more aggressive, and it feels like there's a little bit of shackles off in terms of the presentation he's allowed. So from a starting point, I think there's a lot of potential in that they're a big believer in him. Was this an absolutely blow-away match you need to go out of your way to see? No, it's not. It was an opening match, not even one of the best opening matches in New Japan this year. But if you're a fan of Ren Narita, it's a good match, but I have another one for you later that you definitely want to go out of your way to see.
Yeah, and that's going to be and I agree with you. That's one that I definitely should go out of my way to see and will this week. The key to this one to me, Katsuyori Shibata had the outsider attitude the whole time he was there. And he was a no-nonsense, cut-and-dry character. He black boots, black trunks. He dressed like a young lion, even as he was a main event star. The story with Shibata always was that in New Japan's darkest time, he left and went to other places and was in MMA, and he was in other wrestling companies, and then he returned. And there was that bitterness of him returning. And that's how they played his storylines with Tanahashi, with Nakamura, with Hiroki Goto especially. And then eventually he was accepted back into the fold. He and Goto were a great tag team. And there were other twists and turns along the way, but the story was the outsider with no friends coming back. And then, of course, he got to that point where he did that incredibly stupid headbutt on Okada and almost killed himself in the ring. Flat out did. Gave himself subdermal hematoma, almost died.
Dehydration is real, guys. Drink your water.
And don't headbutt the living hell out of another human being. There's no point to doing that. It was a dumb shit move, and he paid for it. Thankfully, he recovered. He's doing okay, and he's training guys. And so far, the guys he's trained, looks like this guy could be a pretty damn good trainer. This is a full-blown Shibata impression by Narita. And that afterward, and in the he hasn't any formal affiliation, just like Shibata. He dresses just like Shibata. He's even got the facial hair that's like Shibata. I understand the idea of wanting to pay tribute to your mentor, but to just turn into your mentor is something that I'm curious to see how this goes. In the post-match comments, El Desperado said he doesn't know if he is a Shibata knockoff or his own man. To be honest, Jeremy, after one match, and only one match, but the only impression I have so far, I'm not sure either. So is he his own man, or did they just decide, hey, let's just have another Shibata around?
Definitely a question to ask. There wasn't enough on this show, and I think it's definitely a question that is going to be asked more and more over the next few months.
It could be the very point of his first long-term story.
100%.
Yeah, and just for the record, as they go into Autumn Attack, which is going to be the next tour, he's still teaming with Hontai and Chaos members, but again, no formal affiliation yet, which I think is interesting because almost everybody comes in with some kind of formal affiliation. Next match, nice little tag team match right here between the Dangerous Tekkers, Zack Sabre Jr. and Taichi. They defeated the Mighty Don't Kneel, Shane Haste and Bad Dude Tito. This one was just barely under 10 minutes. It was a good match. Didn't feel like it had a whole ton of consequence to it, but it was just a good tag team match on a show. But your thoughts on this one here? I mean, do you think this is just a matter of putting some tag teams in front of us as we get toward the tournament?
Did you catch the post-match thing? The fist bump between Zack Sabre Jr. and Shane Haste?
Yeah. Yeah, I did.
I felt like that was the whole reason for the match. That there was a relationship building there, that these two factions have some type of mutual respect for each other. And given the events later on, you could fantasy book like some unifications and some people merging in here or there, or it could just be these two guys respect each other. But I have not seen a whole lot of fist bumping between two opponents after a match in New Japan in a very, very, very long time.
Post-match comments touched on this. Zack Sabre Jr. mentioned that earlier in their careers, at one point, Zack slept on a very small futon in Shane Haste's place, or they both were staying in the same place together, crowded in, and spent a lot of nights very early in their careers, just kind of living the life of a very young, underpaid professional wrestler with no money and eating cans of beans and sleeping on futons very close. So
that's super weird.
He said that he has
weird.
Oh, that happens all the time, man.
No. I'm saying it's super weird that they go out of their way to explain this context.
Well, you're right, except this is where I'm going with this. Zack and Shane, and he said it's good to see him here. I'm happy he's here. It's very strange for Zack. At the same time, during the same interview, Taichi is mentioning Sonata again and saying that Sonata must really like me. Well, I really like him. I can't wait to wrestle him again. This could be where the Tekkers are kind of going separate ways a little bit and perhaps finding other tag team partners. Who knows? I think that's possible.
You think it's possible that Zack Sabre Jr. teams with Shane Haste and Kanata teams with Taichi for the World Tag League?
Yeah, I'm thinking about it. I really feel like they're going that way with Taichi and Sonata. There's just too much of that mutual admiration society.
If Mikey Nichols is out and they're not looking to commit to Bad Dude Tito and they want to freshen some stuff up, it's not the worst idea in the world.
Yeah, or to make Tito a single. I mean, the guy's talented. And you need that. You need a singles guy, and if Jonah's not going to be there, and maybe New Japan doesn't know if Jonah is going to be back yet or not. We don't know that status. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I mean, I think they might be just setting up some things for if we need this, it's there. We planted seeds. Very possible. So anyway, yeah, and we're going to get to Taichi and Sonata because I think they're still setting that up.
Yeah.
Next match was Hiroshi Tanahashi, Hikuleo, Ryusuke Taguchi against the House of Torture, Evil, Yujiro Takahashi, and Sho made up the House of Torture team. That's, of course, the never openweight 6-man champions. This was all about getting Hikuleo over, as we suspected it would be. And boy, did he, because that dude has a very impressive choke slam, and he put it on the right guy. Sho has such springs in his legs that when Hikuleo choke slammed this man, he looked like he was about 20 feet in the air as he was coming back down. It looked great. And of course, the whole thing was Sho used the wrench on Ryusuke Taguchi, knocked him out cold. Hikuleo, not having any of that. He was Bullet Club for a while. He can get dirty. So he just walks into the ring, no tag, no nothing, grabs him by the face as he's about to do his, by the throat, as he's about to do his finishing move, puts him up in the rafters, choke slams him down. Sho took a beautiful choke slam, and he just casually tosses Taguchi on top of Sho for the pin. So now we have a team that's pinned the never openweight 6-man champions. We have Hikuleo choke slamming guys out of his boots. It's nice to have a monster on the good guy side, and he's right in there with Hantai with his brother.
I recorded a 20-second clip, and I sent this to you. I sent this choke slam to you because as I watched it, I was like, good Lord, he threw him 9 feet into the air and then
it really was
died.
amazing.
And then he dragged a lifeless dragged his lifeless partner over.
And Taguchi absolutely sandbagged him. Like, Taguchi didn't help. He just did.
It was a sequence that I would love to show everybody here right now, but I don't want to get popped for copyright infringement. But if you are able to find the Hikuleo choke slam, it is legitimately the best choke slam I've seen in the last 5 years.
It's been a long time.
It was a tremendous choke slam. Just great. Sho died so hard. And I am gleefully laughing just thinking about it. I replayed it 5 times.
He took a hell of a choke. He was exactly the right guy, because I'm sure it was tempting to pin Yujiro in that match because he's the guy that usually does the jobs for Bullet Club, but someone was like, nah, Sho can take that choke slam good. And it was fabulous. And the thing with Hikuleo, before he went on this excursion to NJPW Strong, he wrestled a bunch of matches, just undercard stuff, mostly with Bad Luck Fale, excuse me. And he looked green, but he looked like he had potential. We're starting to really see that potential. This guy's got some charisma to him that he didn't really have then. He's picking up that part of it, got some personality. And again, like a babyface monster can work. And I think he's off to a very good start.
Yeah, no, I keep joking about Gallows and Hikuleo at Wrestle Kingdom for a title because I think there's a lot of potential for this guy, and he needs to destroy another big guy and win a title and make it like do a mini Wardlow run is kind of what I'm looking at. Like there's a lot of money to be made with Hikuleo if you could figure it out. But I highest possible recommendation going back and finding this specific move, not the match. Just a 5-star move.
Yeah. Match was fine. They knew they knew what they were there for, which is to get Hikuleo over. So, Tanahashi and Taguchi mostly had the night off.
I'm pretty sure I predicted this match as being none of the shenanigans that House of Torture do is going to work on Hikuleo, and he's just going to run through him. That's basically what happened. So, yay!
And maybe they'll do a 6-man tag after this one with the never openweight titles, and if they do, that's fine. Up next, the United Empire, another straight tag team match. It's unusual that you get regular teams facing each other in New Japan like this on a show without titles on the line. But United Empire, Jeff Cobb and the Great Okan defeated the Chaos combination of Hiroki Goto and Yoshihashi. Now, Goto and Yoshihashi had a very strong start, end of 2021, start of 2022. They had a very strong run there. They won World Tag League last year. They won the tag team titles at Wrestle Kingdom. And I wonder if this wasn't just a way to put United Empire over a team that already has a strong resume here going into it. I think they want to establish that Cobb and Okan are the top challengers for now for the IWGP tag team titles held by FTR, probably because they're the team that could go the most places to meet up with FTR and wrestle them at some point in there. It's just not time for Goto and Yoshihashi. They're the defending tag tournament champions. I would expect both these teams to be in that tournament, but this looks like a way just to remind everybody that Cobb and Okan are top contenders.
Yeah, no, United Empire looked definitely dominant. Yoshihashi and Goto just had the never open weight trios titles as well, the 6-man titles. Right. So they've held plenty of belts this year. They are looked at as the established team that if you get a win, it kind of legitimizes you even more. I wouldn't be surprised if they're in the opposite bracket from Great Okan and Jeff Cobb going into the next thing because, they're setting up all this stuff. I don't see them going to the finals, but I see them being like a quarterfinal or semifinal team that puts over the other team that is going to move forward. But if I had to guess, none of these teams are going to win the World Tag League. Or if they do, it's not going to lead to them winning the world titles or anything like that. I feel like, I don't know. It just doesn't seem like United Empire getting the titles back is the immediate plan.
I feel like there's going to be a shakeup both in terms of the teams that are there, because in both in terms of who wins and who's involved and the teams in the tournament. I feel like we're going to see some new combinations, some new teams, just because I feel like the company is aware that the last 2 or 3 years of pandemic kind of tag team tournaments have looked like a lot of the same lineups in there.
Tag teams are pretty stale.
Yeah, and I think that this is the year, especially now that the travel situation is much easier than it has been for the last couple of years, that Gato understands that, and it's time to bring in some new talent into those, new talent or returning talent or just something other than basically the same 10 teams we've seen the last couple of years in that tournament. I feel like there's going to be
I don't want to throw shade here, but the IWGP Tag Champions actually haven't had a title match in Japan yet.
Yeah, and a lot of that is just politics and logistics and things. But hopefully, we'll see something like that. I can't wait.
But I'm not telling any lies when I say that, and that definitely something that should be addressed.
And it's also been mentioned now in post-match comments too. So again, we mentioned the post-match comments because very few things happen in New Japan by accident. So if there are a couple of people that mention a certain thing, even if it's something very small, usually means there's a story behind that. A couple of different tag teams mentioned that the champs haven't come to Japan, which leads me to believe that the hand will be forced in storyline, and FTR will have to come to Japan and defend those titles. So I feel like that's on the way at some point, maybe November 5th, maybe later, who knows? Again, there's a lot of hurdles that need to be jumped over to get all that stuff done. So
I definitely hope that FTR decides to show up in Japan, perhaps in their full gear.
That'd be wonderful. It'd be wonderful. Let's hope. Let's see. We have next. A very interesting moment here, Jeremy. We had LIJ in what looked like just a standard run-of-the-mill 8-man tag right here. We had Naito, Sanada, Hiromu Takahashi, and Bushi facing the United Empire team of Will Ospreay, Aaron Henare, and the junior tag team champions of TJP and Francesco Akira. This match was rolling along. It was fine. We figured that they were kind of setting up Will and Naito, and they were. And Naito won the right to face Will Ospreay for the U.S. title. That match is coming up. We're going to see it. And only their second singles meeting coming off the semifinals of the G1. And it was a perfectly fine match until Francesco Akira started to try to take off Bushi's mask when another masked man suddenly jumped into the ring. He was dressed in all black and almost in dress clothes, the way LIJ tends to do. Naito for big matches comes out in the suit that's kind of custom made to come off the way it does. Sanada usually wears formal wear. Hiromu's his own dude, but this guy came out dressed very nicely with a mask on, ran roughshod all over the United Empire, devastated all 4 of them at one point, hits a finishing hold on a big move coming over almost like an avalanche type of move, dropped him on his knee, flattened Akira and TJP, and then in the end, Bushi was able to get the pin on the junior tag team champions. LIJ slides in the ring like, who the hell is this guy? Like they're playing it very coy, like they don't know who it is. the man slowly, and I do mean slowly, he milked this very effectively, took off his mask to reveal Titan, who was a Technico, which is a good guy, in CMLL, and somebody who has been to Japan numerous times for the Fantastica Mania tour. That's when the Mexican wrestlers come over for, usually right after Wrestle Kingdom. It's usually in Japan in January, early February. Titan's a hell of a wrestler. He basically says that he went into business for himself and he wants to join LIJ. There was a meeting in the ring among the 4 guys. And what can you say, Jeremy? We walked in here with 5 members of Los Ingobernables. We leave with 6. Titan was accepted in, and now he is a member, and he's going to start wrestling on these tags with LIJ. As someone who has watched CMLL and has seen Titan in action, this guy's really good. I think that this is a nice little jolt for the junior heavyweight division right there. I certainly didn't see this thing coming at all. Hadn't even heard that he was thinking about working more with New Japan. So what a pleasant surprise. It's like, there's not too often you just get blindsided by something that makes you this happy. The idea of Titan meeting up with all these guys on a regular basis, I'm in.
They definitely laid the groundwork before the match even started. I don't know if Chris Charlton knew this was going to happen or not, but he kept referring to the town being very special for LIJ because a number of people debuted through here. And so I'd heard about the Teton thing before it had happened. So it's like, wow, you're laying the groundwork hard, but I can only imagine what it was like to listen to it. It's like, yeah, okay, that's a nice little story, Chris Charlton. Thanks for sharing. And then all this happens. The one drawback that I have about this is that there were a lot of eggs in the basket post-match angle because you had to get over further the Will Ospreay and Naito feud over the belt, which made Teton have to stay outside for about 3 or 4 minutes and just kind of kill time while they got over the Will Ospreay US title angle. And then they brought Teton in, which I get it. Like you got a lot of mouths to feed, and you gotta move a lot of things forward. And so some of these other shows that happen, maybe the canceled shows a couple of weeks ago, some of the stuff was supposed to happen. Maybe something like that. Who knows? Actually, no, that happened before Royal Quest, which Royal Quest set a lot of the groundwork for this. So no, never mind any of that. But but it's just one of those, like, it felt like a lot, and I'm not sure which was supposed to be the more important angle. Teton debuting to LIJ or the U.S. title feud between Naito and Ospreay. And if neither one of them feel more important than the other, did either angle actually really, truly succeed?
Oh, yeah, I think it did. I think Teton getting in there was a big deal, and I think they have plenty. Will Ospreay and Naito doesn't need a whole lot; just needs an announcement. I think people are fired up about that match, and they have plenty of preview tags to go before that match actually takes place. I thought it was pretty strong stuff. The idea of LIJ now having a real junior heavyweight tag team, and they always did with Hiromu and Bushi, but they didn't stay together long. They would really only compete at the junior tag team tournament, and that was just about it.
You can't afford to keep Hiromu in a tag team.
Exactly, which I think is exactly why he's here. Remember, Shingo was a junior heavyweight when he first got there for a little while anyway, until they realized that he was better off as a heavy. So now you have Teton and Bushi, which will probably be a hell of a good team. And something fresh, and you can keep Hiromu in that singles division. So I think it's a win-win across the board. I think the stuff with Naito and Ospreay, I think the fans are already in for it. And I think we're going to be seeing more little clashes with them throughout the Autumn Attack tour coming up. So I think it's checked every box they needed to check in this one. I was pretty happy with it.
Did Shingo get a vote?
Yeah, I guess not. But I mean, if they were all unanimous, they were. Yeah. I don't think he's going to complain too much. He had other things to think about, which is coming up here in just a little bit. But now the next one, it was interesting. Here we had Master Wato stepping in for Kushida, facing Taiji Ishimori in a non-title match. Now, this one went just under 15 minutes, and to, I think, most people's shock, and Master Wato pinned him with the half and half right there and got the win over Taiji Ishimori. This set off a whole chain of events. This knocked over a big domino, because after that, Hiromu came out, and he had even mentioned in post-match comments, I love it, when they came back from the Teton thing, both Bushi and Hiromu were just kind of shaking their heads, just saying, wow, I mean, he showed such initiative that he would just go out there and do that. And help us, and then asked to join the group. And they were both really impressed with that. And Hiromu kind of paused for a second and says, I think I need to show some initiative too. And he marches off. Well, here it was. He comes running out after Wato was clearly going to challenge him. Hey, I beat you in a non-title match. Now we get a title match. Hiromu comes out and says, hey, but he doesn't get to go any further because El Desperado had the same idea. These are all people who have beaten Ishimori either in the, I believe, in the junior tournament or in this match here. And what they did was all three of these guys were arguing about who should get the next title match. Ishimori got so fed up that his heel hubris took over, and Ishimori just says, I'll take all y'all on. And so now we have a four-way set up for Wrestle Kingdom with the three guys who have beaten Ishimori in the recent months. Now Master Wato, El Desperado, Hiromu Takahashi. Those four will have a four-way match at Wrestle Kingdom for that title, and that's what this was all set up, is that Wrestle Kingdom match. So ended up being a good match. The only person that lost this match wasn't really Taiji Ishimori. It was Kushida, who's now pretty much out of the picture. But we don't know when Kushida is going to be back. I mean, that hand, foot, and mouth disease, it just depends on the person. And I think right now, the whole story of Kushida trying to earn his way into a title match and things that was going on, I think it's just been put on hold until later, until they can be sure they can get him for a full tour. And I don't think anyone knows when that's going to be. So in the meantime, we're probably going to have a hell of a good four-way match.
I don't know where this match came from, but it was fucking great.
It was fun.
Absolutely fucking great. I have long made a joke that Wato reminds me of Okada's kid brother in every way, shape, or form, that likes to do magic and whatever. And I just kind of dismiss it. And I don't know why. I just like the gimmick. Just, I don't know. Like you wanna make the quarter appear behind the dudes here and then give him a power slam. Sure, fine, whatever. This match, like, he was getting his ass kicked by Ishimori. And I was like, wow, they're really just going to bury this dude and just like do that match. And I was watching it, and I saw the counter, and I saw the half and half for the pin. I popped so hard. I hate to be like that guy, but it was just everybody lost their shit on that finish. Like I don't even know how to put it other than just like, you just saw a dude have one of the best matches of his career and one of the biggest wins of his career. And it just came out of nowhere. And you don't get these kind of matches where a guy is elevated before your eyes in a non-title match, getting the win, everything about it. And he's been there for like 3 years. So it's about that time that he's going a little higher on the card, and he's held the junior tag titles. He's not Okada's kid brother, and I got to stop looking at him like that. And this went a long way. They say opportunity knocks when something happens, and Kushida having to step away because of the issues with the hand, foot, and mouth disease. Wato stepped in, he shot his shot, and now like the whole story is, you don't belong here. You're not at that level, and yet here you are, and we don't take you seriously. I think we know where this story goes, and I'm looking forward to it because, man, he showed me a lot, and it was a match you need to go out of your way to see, because there was definite like Razor Ramon 1, 2, 3 kid vibes to it, I guess you could say. Just this guy was the underdog. They're both junior heavyweights, but Ishimori is just taking him to school, and he catches him, and it's not a fluke. Like, it's not a fluke pin. Like, he beat him clean.
And
he had his number. That's great.
Ishimori is so good, and he sometimes gets lost behind Hiromu Takahashi and El Desperado and some of the other juniors out there, but Ishimori is fantastic, and he really brought Wato along, and like you said, worked the match like this was a workout for him. Like, he was just getting in some exercise, and he was just going to beat this kid when he decided to. And when it all went sideways on him, he played it wonderfully. It didn't look like a fluke pin. Like you said, this wasn't a thing where he kicked out at 3.1. He got beat. And through all that, and there's a difference, right? There's ways to put guys over without putting them over at all. right? You know, you can lose a match without making the guy look good. This was the other way around. So great work all around. And they're doing some interesting things with these four that we're going to get to a little later in these matches going forward. And the build up to this 4-way match is going to be intriguing. So
if you want to see how good Ishimori is, go back and watch the New Japan Strong match between him and Alan Angels, and then go and watch this match and just see like what he's able to do in keeping a match put together and smooth. And it's like he's the ring general in these matches, my man. Like he is the one putting it all together, and he makes it look easy. He makes it look easy.
Up next, we had the Who's Your Daddy? New Japan King of Pro Wrestling provisional match between Shingo Takagi and El Phantasmo. These are two talented guys. The basic gimmick on this one was actually they went a little further than they said. They said that the loser would have to go on the microphone and admit that the other person is his daddy, because that has been the thing. Like El Phantasmo has been tormenting Shingo Takagi since G1, finding ways to beat him. And saying, you know, I'm Shingo's daddy, and having T-shirts made and things. Well, this was the big revenge. A good match, you know, about 16 minutes between two very, very talented guys. Shingo got the victory, overcame Phantasmo. Afterwards, he didn't just have to say, "You're my daddy." He also had to put on a T-shirt that said Shingo is my daddy. He had to put in a pacifier. He had to pose with the pacifier and the T-shirt and the provisional title. This went on so much.
Was there a bonnet?
There wasn't a bonnet. That was about the only thing they left off. Jeremy, by the end of this, and I'm a Shingo Takagi mark, I am on board with this dude, but by the end of this, I was rooting for El Phantasmo to punch him in the nuts, because I just said, this is so humiliating for ELP that I was starting to feel sorry for him. So, smart move to have him just do something underhanded, which was after this. He asked for, you know, he calls him dad. He asked for a hug. Shingo hugs him. And then,
you idiot.
Of course, El Phantasmo hits him in the balls. But I was kind of glad he did. I didn't want to, I wanted El Phantasmo to keep a little bit of heat and a little bit of dignity on there, although they tried to take it all away from him there. So what'd you think of this? This was, it got a little goofy at the end, but a good match.
I was legitimately hoping that this was the end of the feud, in all honesty, and it's not. And I was just like, okay. When they went to the G1 and they were going to keep going forward, I was all in on this feud. But it has gone in kind of a silly way that this Who's Your Daddy stuff has kind of taken me out of it, because when you have a main eventer like Shingo in a comedy match, it just makes you realize that he's just kind of being iced for a little while and doing some other stuff. And Shingo being iced is, I would rather him doing something important near the top, but I get that Naito is the guy in LIJ right now and not Shingo, and he's got a title program going on. I wouldn't be surprised if the ELP thing goes all the way to Wrestle Kingdom, and then ELP wins the King of Pro Wrestling provisional stuff there. Shingo losing a Who's Your Daddy match probably is not the best look for him, but there are other stipulations that he can lose and still come away feeling a little bit protected. This was probably lower on my list of favorites on this card, and the quicker I move on from it, probably the better off I'm going to be.
I felt the match itself was pretty good. I thought the match itself was pretty good. It was clear that they weren't, you know, they knew that this wasn't exactly their main event, that there were other things to do there. So also the trophy got smashed and all that. The trophy used to get smashed all the time with Yano. Now that ELP has smashed it, seems to be a big deal. But they'd also mentioned earlier that Shingo was talking about getting a new trophy or a new belt made for it anyway. So we'll probably see something like that coming soon. Up next was Kazuchika Okada over JONAH. Now, we already talked about the results of this one. This one went 19 minutes and 53 wonderful seconds. What a match. The story on this one, we mentioned that they did the ceremony before the card for Antonio Inoki. Now, the ceremony itself was about what you would see in Japan. It was done like a lot of these are, where the baby faces line up around the ring. Even some of the heels came out. Jay White and ELP kind of stuck their heads into they were just in the tunnle. They weren't all the way out there.
They were way back there.
They were way back, but they were there.
We're going to respect you, but we're not actually New Japan. We are just going to stand in the back and kayfabe it.
And they had a few. They had Seiji Sekaguchi, his Inoki's right hand man, who got into the ring for held up the picture and the 10-bell salute, and it was exactly that respectful, somber thing. They played his music and there were some tears in the.
It was
both
lovely.
among. It was very nice, very respectful. Then they went into this match, and both Okada and JONAH afterwards said that the spirit of Inoki was with Okada. Okada has talked that he always wanted to wrestle in front of Inoki, and I don't know if that ever really happened with him as a top guy. Again, Inoki not in great health the last few years, so didn't really show up and didn't want to be seen in public as frail until the very, very end. So there was always this kind of unfinished business with Okada that he wanted to, kind of main event in front of Inoki like that. This match was wonderful. He worked the story was he worked JONAH's leg a lot and worked the knee so that when JONAH went for the torpedo late in the match, it took him a while to climb to the top, which gave Okada the time to recover and get out of the way of the torpedo. It eventually led to a whole series with the Okada dropkick where JONAH didn't bump, a couple of hard clotheslines where JONAH didn't go down, and finally he was able to get the body slam. He was able to get the Rainmaker. Okada climbs the mountain, slays the beast, however you want to put it, and overcame what was one of his great challenges there, is how this was portrayed, and now sets him clearly on the path to the IWGP World Title match, main event of Wrestle Kingdom. We mentioned the consequences as to whether JONAH is staying or not, or whatever happens with this one. I love this story. We talked about how JONAH may have won. It was nice. It was nice to go into this match honestly not knowing who would win. What did you think of this one?
It was a great match. I think I liked the G1 match between them a bit more, just because there was lightning in the bottle that you just can't recreate. Kind of like the Acclaim versus Swerve in Our Glory first time, second time match.
That's fair.
There's just something special about that first match. Man, though, these guys came out and did everything in their power to call back, do everything that they could to deliver something special. And I think that they did. I think it was a fantastic match. Okada always delivers. JONAH is at a next level that every time I see him in a match with the top guy, he is just better than he was before. Like, he walks away from each one of these matches and he levels up. Like, I don't really know other way to say it other than that dude levels up hard in the way that the next match that you see him in is just even more dangerous than the one before. Among my favorite matches on this card, I think I kind of like the Wato versus Ishimori one, just because it caught me so off guard. But probably my second favorite match on the card.
It was really good, and like I said, the whole idea is that Okada has overcome this great thing, and again, his intellect again is put on display, where Okada over the course of the tour leading up to this show would put together pieces in those preview tags, match after match, where he would get just a little bit closer, and then he put it all together in the singles match and got the win. Of course, still 1-1. So there's a rubber match, hopefully in the future between these two, and we can see this matchup again.
And like you said, it was a really nice touch that JONAH was winded getting up for his top rope splash, and Okada was able to get out of the way, because in that G1 match, that dude sprinted up there. And he got up there so fast, and he hit it, and he took him out, and he wasn't able to get up there, and that made all the difference in the world.
Yeah, really a lot of leg work on JONAH to build the groundwork for that, lay the groundwork for that. So that
was excellent pro wrestling.
It's the kind of storytelling we love New Japan for. And then we had some really good storytelling again. One of the best storytellers in wrestling is Switchblade Jay White. He's the IWGP World Heavyweight Champion. I don't think there were more than a handful of people who expected Tama Tonga to win this title match in the main event. I think we all knew that this was going to be Jay White's title match stop on the way to the main event of Wrestle Kingdom. 31 minutes and 7 seconds flew by. Chris Charlton even mentioned that this match was flying by. Tama Tonga has been indeed elevated. This is a guy that can main event a show right now and he won't blink twice. Now that he's had his big singles world title main event, he has delivered. I think this is everything it's supposed to be. Makes the champion look clever and strong going into the big show. It makes the babyface challenger who lost nobly in defeat it leaves him in a better spot than he was when he got there. Terrific match, great story. Nothing to be ashamed of for Tama Tonga, and it's not portrayed that way. I think everybody came out of this exactly where they needed to be. I thought this was fabulous.
This was a great match. I think the big question coming into it was Tama Tonga going to be able to hold up his end of the bargain in the angle, the feud, and the match? Well,
sure did.
Tama Tonga is like Domino's. He delivered in 30 minutes or less, and it was excellent.
Yeah. I mean, it really is. I mean, you give the guy the ball and you see if he can run with it, and he did. And like now, anytime this guy, you put him in with anybody for any title, and I think New Japan fans are going to buy it, which is exactly what this was designed to do: is create a new main event guy, and they got it.
Yeah. So there's not much more to say to this other than good job, Tama Tonga, and the Wrestle Kingdom main event is now set as a result with Okada and Jay White. Good things ahead for everybody involved in this match. I definitely see Tama Tonga holding a singles belt within the next year. Probably not the world heavyweight title, but something prestigious is coming his way because he just did a main event with Jay White, the first of two for an IWGP title, neither of which are from Japan. That's a big honor.
Oh, yeah,
so
yeah. It's a good point too. That's a good point.
So they believe in him, and I believe in him too.
There you go. The only other note I had from the show, Jeremy, is we saw Oleg Coulson, who's a new guy in the New Japan dojo there. He is a Kazakhstani wrestler that is being trained with Nagata, by Nagata in the New Japan dojo. So you saw him around ringside. So if you see this rather imposing figure in a beard around there, that is Oleg Coulson. So
I saw that on social media, but that wasn't on the broadcast, was it?
Yeah, Chris Charlton mentioned his name there briefly.
Oh, but the actual bring him out with the
no,
no.
That
was all pre-show.
Yes, that was all pre-show. But he was down there doing his best to stay out of the way and also stay low. He's a very tall man, so they kept having to remind him, duck down in front. Those people behind you paid to see it. So he'll get it. I'm not worried about him. So that brings us to the Battle Autumn is the name of the next tour. So Battle Autumn, it starts Friday. And we're going to begin in Korakuen Hall. Most of these are tag team matches with the exception of the TV title tournament. And let's see, we also have a little bit of cheering on this tour, Jeremy, on Sunday the 16th in Niigata, and at Korakuen Hall on the 26th and 27th. A little bit of cheering going on there. So the only other notes I had for this thing that I wanted to mention too, Titan will begin teaming with LIJ. He's in those multi-person tags starting off. Ren Narita, I mentioned, still with Hantai and Chaos at this, and so he's going to be in multi-person tags. But the TV title tournament is beginning right away. So this weekend and then the weekend of the 26th and 27th is when the first round matches are going to come. Here's what we got, Jeremy. First night, David Finlay against Shingo Takagi. So, big match. That was a hell of a match in G1. And again, we mentioned the person holding the belt makes the belt rather than the other way around when it's first created. So Shingo's former world heavyweight champion. So there you have it. So there's the top guy there. Alex Zane against Zack Sabre Jr. First round matchup.
Aaron Hanara. I got a question for you. The one that I have, I don't have Shingo. I have Yoshinobu Kanemaru versus David Finlay.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, I would tell you what. I will right now here on the air. I will look up 1972.com and double check that in case I have typed it.
On the 14th, right?
Coming up this the first show of the tour, so let me get back to that in case I will correct myself immediately if I botched that.
I apologize. I just want to be accurate for the viewers, and I was like, Shingo, where's Shingo? I don't see Shingo.
No, David Finlay and Shingo Takagi. Yeah,
great.
Cool. Kanemaru is on the show, but isn't Kanemaru on the show?
Yeah, I don't know. I just
Kanemaru has a night off.
Yeah, okay, then we're going with it.
Yeah. According to NJPW1972.com, the double main event there, the TV tournament first round, Shingo Takagi, David Finlay, Alex Zane against Zack Sabre Jr. So
love it. I definitely like Finlay versus Takagi more than I like Finlay versus Kanemaru. 100%.
Sure. Fair enough. And then you had Aaron Hanare against Evil, Yoshihashi against Jeff Cobb, And let's see, Hiroki Goto will face Kenta, and Sanada will face Taichi. There's that singles match between those two. We've been wondering. So that's coming up, and those two have terrific chemistry, so it'll probably be pretty good. And then on the 26th, and then there's not going to be any tournament matches for a little while. Starting up on the 26th, Ren Narita against Tomohiro Ishii. That's intriguing to see who goes over there. I'm really curious. And then Toru Yano against the Great Okan. So those are that finishes up the first round, and like this tournament will continue on until Wrestle Kingdom, which is the champion will be crowned there. So we're going to be seeing the first round of that during Battle Autumn.
I am cautiously excited for this. This feels like you could have a bunch of upsets and kind of iffy challengers going forward, but at the same time, like, I really hope some of the big names go forward and can do a sprinty style match. There aren't a whole lot of names on there that I'm super in love with. I don't feel great about Shingo's chances because he's already the king of pro wrestling and he doesn't really need it. So
yeah. You could always do an angle with it too, maybe where somebody comes and interferes or some stuff like that to protect them if you wanted to.
100%.
Yeah.
So, it'll be an interesting title. It'll be an interesting tournament. It is not the most interesting tournament I've seen from New Japan this year, and it feels like it's just kind of tacked on.
Yeah.
But hey, blow me away. Show me good matches.
Yeah, that's all we ask.
Prove me wrong.
Yeah, and then of course next week we will cover the early matches in that tournament, and then we'll build up to November 5th very quickly. So far announced for November 5th, which is kind of the big show at the end of this tour. It'll be a U.S. title: Will Ospreay against Tetsuya Naito. Karl Anderson against Hikuleo, where so far still happening right there. There is an interesting thing. Aussie Open is going to be in action. The TV title semifinals will be on November 5th. And then there's going to be a four-way, or not a four-way. The four people involved in the junior heavyweight title four-way, Ishimori, Desperado, Hiromu, and Wato, are in a tag team match where the partners will be randomly drawn.
Oh,
so something a little different there. So I haven't seen that one before from New Japan. So
LIJ facing each other. Ooh.
Could never know. So well, there aren't two LIJ guys in there.
Oh, I'm sorry.
You got a Suzuki-gun, an LIJ.
I keep thinking Desperados is LIJ for whatever reason.
He's the Suzuki.
I got all crossed up. Thanks for correcting me, my friend.
No, that's okay. And then, of course, we'll go right now. And then later in the month, we still have the Rumble on 44th Street and the night before, which is a mystery card. In fact, they were saying that the fans are encouraged to come in costume there in New York, and they will not announce the card in advance. In fact, they're not even going to announce it at the beginning of the show. You'll find out what the matches are when the guys walk to the ring.
Have you already bought your package on Fight TV?
I haven't yet, but I'm going to. I mean, obviously, I'm going to get the show, but I have not purchased it already on Fight TV. So
you buy it together, you save some money.
I will definitely
$30 for the bundle, everybody. $30 for the bundle on Fight TV for 2 nights. Two nights in New Japan and New York.
So with all this going on, there was a match, a very unexpected match. Well, maybe not an unexpected match, but the way it turned out was definitely unexpected, Jeremy. Tell us what happened on NJPW Strong, because this is a little more intriguing week than we're used to from this show.
Holy moly. What a show. Oh, man. Okay, so this was the Autumn Attack tapings in Las Vegas, Nevada. We had an opening match of Shota Umino versus QT Marshall, which has been being built up over the last 6 weeks here or there and everywhere. And I believe last week we talked about QT Marshall talking a lot of smack about Shota, and then Shota gave him this video message that he'd come and take him to school in Vegas, which Shota Umino took him to school in Vegas. Strong show. Not really the match that I'm here to talk about.
No.
Which I will get to. JR Kratos and Danny Limelight came out and talked about being there since day one guys in New Japan Strong, and then challenge Aussie Open. So we have a match of that to look forward to. And then we get to the two matches that made this show go an hour and 20 minutes when it's usually an hour-long match, an hour-long show. First match was Rock Hard Juice Robinson versus Ren Narita. And I wasn't really sure what this match was going to be.
Just a standard wrestling match, Jeremy. No big deal. Probably about 10 minutes. Think you give us 10 or 12, give us a good finish. It'll be nice.
Ren Narita, will go hard, but maybe not quite, pull it off. Juke Robinson will have a standard Juke Robinson match. This was not that, my friend. This was not that. This was Juke Robinson assaulting Ren Narita on the stage before the match even started. Beats the holy hell out of him and throws him down the steps. Takes him into the ring and around the ring and beats him pillar to post until he's got a full-on crimson mask. He then tells Narita, "You shouldn't have talked shit on me on social media. This is what you get. Like, you want to face rock hard Juke Robinson? I will take you to school and I will show you what it's all about." Narita's like, "Let's fight. Let's go. No disqualification right now." He demands the match. And rock hard Juke Robinson is just like, "Okay, I've already destroyed you. Let's do it." Stephen Conway, I don't know what I was expecting, but I was not expecting this. This was near 20 minutes of these two beating the hell out of each other. Narita with a crimson mask is just bringing everything to the table against Rockhard Juke Robinson. Rockhard can't put him away. He's trying. He gives him a running power bomb through a table on the outside, and it is still not enough to take down Ren Narita. Ren Narita eventually wins by climbing on his back and wrenching his arms behind his neck until Rockhard Juke Robinson has no choice but to tap out to Ren Narita. Crimson Mask, Ren Narita, damn near 5-star match for Ren Narita.
Wow, how about that?
Like, I was watching it. I was like, this is interesting. Match just kept going, man. Match just kept going, and it kept going. And you had the audience of 500 people just chanting, "This is fucking awesome." Like, it was one of those matches that you don't realize it's going to hit you out of the bolt of the blue. Kind of like the Sheamus Gunther match. It was just so good that I hate that I had to spoil that for you.
No,
because
that's okay.
it was a fantastic match. So make time to see that one. It was probably one of the best New Japan Strong matches of the entire year, if the entire run of the show.
Fantastic.
And then we had a weird match. Bullet Club, Jay White and Karl Anderson. He of Karl Anderson, who basically pulled a Rick Rude on me. I watched New Japan Strong and then went straight to Raw on 2 different shows one night.
He's everywhere.
He Anderson and Jay White versus Homicide and Wheeler Yuta.
It's an intriguing tag team.
This was better than it had every right to be. Wheeler Yuta looks better and better with every show that I see him. He's just looking better and better. He carried himself like a star. Everything about him, he felt bigger than a lot of the regulars on New Japan Strong here. Homicide looked like Homicide. Bullet Club looked like Bullet Club. It was a strange bedfellows match, I guess is the best way to put it. But there was a lot going on. So Tom Lawler was ringside doing commentary, and he continued a feud with Homicide, which ended up costing Homicide and Wheeler Yuta the match. So that's how they end up losing, as Homicide, I believe, took the pin from Jay White. Afterwards, Lawler's group, the Team Filthy, and Bullet Club were in the ring together, hanging out. Part of it was Jay White had a promo to cut, but it was also Lawler's hometown. So they were kind of in cooperation as they beat down Wheeler Yuta, Shota Umino, and Homicide. 8 or 9 people just beat him up and sent him packing, and then proceeded to have Jay White cut the clip, cut the challenge towards Eddie Kingston in New York for Battle on 44th, saying that Eddie had too much anxiety to come see him, so maybe he'll go to Eddie's hometown, and maybe Eddie will be able to show up there if he's got the stones or whatnot. So real shitty talk by our guy Jay White here, if you expect nothing less. Sure. And so that sets up the Battle for 44th, and it's an hour and 20 minutes. You could probably skip the first 20. But oh man, New Japan Strong is not to be missed this week.
Excellent. Well, that's cool to hear. And you mentioned Wheeler Yuta. The thing that I just he's been in a lot of big matches with a lot of big stars lately. And what you hope from a young talent is that each time he has one of those matches against one of those big stars, that he picks up a little something from it and learns a little bit something from it and takes it in. Very few people have been as effective at that as he has. He really has visibly gotten better. He was good to begin with. Has visibly gotten better as he has gone through these big matches that both New Japan Strong and AEW have put him in. And Yuta just seems to be a sponge for this kind of stuff. And I don't doubt for a second that he was right in there and doing terrific stuff with Jay White and these guys. So I'm very curious to see this. I'll definitely make time to check this one out.
You know what's a good comp for Yuta is Master Wato. They're both in that same level of like, there's a lot of potential, both of them. They are people that don't quite connect fully with the audience, and their character is not so fully fleshed out that everyone is locked in on them, but they want to be. So that's something that they both have going on, and it'll be interesting to track them both at this point, seeing as the momentum that they have so far. So are we on to Inoki time?
A little bit of Inoki time here, yeah. And we're thinking about things like Hikuleo coming back after being gone for a while, Ren Narita with the formal coming back from excursion. I thought we would look a little bit at Inoki's because of course, the passing of Inoki, the ceremony for him. Let's tie it all together. Let's look at Inoki's excursion, because the idea of Japanese wrestlers going on excursion goes all the way back to that. And so very briefly, and again, there's a lot of biographies that have come out since his passing and even before about Inoki's life. Dave Meltzer's bio, of course, in the Observer. I'm talking about on the Fight Game Media Network. Justin Nipper's his series with Fumi Saito about Inoki. Write that down. All worth your time, certainly. But let's just go over this very quickly. Antonio Inoki, his family, Kanji Inoki is his name, emigrated to Brazil at the age of 14. He was a track and field star. Actually, while he was in Brazil is when he met Riki Dozan, who is the man who brought professional wrestling to Japan. He had to go to Brazil to meet Riki Dozan, which I always thought was kind of a kick. So Riki Dozan's the guy that really created wrestling, bigger than life figure, and he was the guy in charge, basically, of the Japanese Pro Wrestling Alliance, the JWA. That was the main company in Japan. So Inoki went over there and trained there. I'm going to boil a lot of this down because I wanted to get to his excursion. So he and Shohei Baba, who eventually created All Japan Pro Wrestling, debuted on the same card. Baba was considered the bigger prospect, Jeremy. Baba had played professional baseball in Japan for the Yomiuri Giants, the #1 team in all of Japan. If the Yankees and Dodgers were the same team, I mean, this is a big time team. Like something like I saw some stat that the majority of baseball fans in Japan overall are fans of the Giants. So huge star, right? Inoki lost his debut. Baba won his. So already they were kind of setting up that Baba was kind of the top guy. And of course, he had the height that nobody had really back then. And Inoki was a track and field star and a very good athlete, though. So I would say that Inoki was certainly a better athlete than Baba, but Baba had been a pro baseball player and was considered the better prospect. So after a couple of years of doing the prelims like you do, his journey was not unlike a lot of the young lions you see today. He took quite a few losses early in his career, Inoki did, and eventually he went on excursion to the United States in 1964. So he started with a few shows just over in Hawaii. You can almost see his plane going across the country as you look through the results. He then ended up in the Central States Territory, so that had to be quite the transition there. So he was renamed Tokyo Tom. Ugh. So, again, not the most progressive thing in the world, but it's 1964, and that's what you're going to get, right?
Yeah, that's not great.
It's not great at all. So it's not going to get better, by the way. So he was Tokyo. It's not. It's not. But
awkward laugh.
Yeah, he would face guys that are huge names in the business, though. So the talent was obvious because he was not booked as a prelim guy in the United States at all. And he was put in there with guys like Sailor Art Thomas, a very young Harley Race met up with Tokyo Tom in the Kansas City based territory, and they ran shows around Kansas and in northern Missouri, and sometimes they would go into Iowa and things like that. That Central States territory. And he was pushed there. He ran Pat O'Connor, the former NWA World Heavyweight Champion, Don Jardine, who would become the Spoiler, the Masked Spoiler, the Mongolian Stomper. So he did well there, and he was there for a while. Then he moved on to Los Angeles. There he was called Little Tokyo. Again, we're not doing so good on that.
A product of its time.
And of course, most Japanese back then were portrayed as the salt throwing sneaky heels, similar to, if you're a German, you're probably goose stepping, right? That's just the time.
Mr. Fuji vibe.
Yeah, there was a little bit of that. And so in LA, he wrestled in the Los Angeles territory was thriving at this point, by the way. So you could basically run shows. The furthest trip you had was really like Bakersfield, California, or San Diego. But you were spending most of the days of the week in the LA area. I mean, there were shows at the Olympic Auditorium was the main one in Los Angeles, but then you would also just go to Pasadena. I mean, there were some short trips on that. So it was a lucrative territory where you could basically spend all day at the beach and still make the show at night. I mean, who wouldn't love that? There he ran into the Destroyer, who would become a key figure in Japanese wrestling history, Rip Hawk, Freddie Blassie. So very early in Inoki's career, he's doing a couple of different things. He is, one, working his way up cards very quickly, so his talent is showing through. The other thing he's doing is making connections with people who will make a big difference in Japanese wrestling in the future. After 4 months, he moved on to Portland, Oregon, and he wrestled here as Mr. Kazumoto. He's got a name, not just Tokyo Tom or Little Tokyo. Tony Bourne and Pat Patterson were a couple of the people that he ran into in Portland. And then back to LA for a little while, where he feuded with the Assassins, Jody Hamilton and Tom Ernesto, one of the great tag teams, old school tag teams in the territory era. From there, he was back at his given name, Kanji Inoki, and he went to Texas. Wrestled all over Texas. And Texas broke up later on, like the Blanchards had San Antonio, and of course the Von Erichs were in Dallas. But back then, there was basically one booking office that booked a lot of Texas, and he was all over the place. There and worked all over Texas, met up with guys like Cowboy Bob Ellis, Gene Kiniski, another world heavyweight champion, Killer Carl Cox. Now, do you remember, Jeremy, when we were going over things like the early tournaments?
Yes.
Precursors to G1, one of the very first top foreign heels for New Japan Pro Wrestling was Killer Carl Cox.
I remember this.
So this was back in 1964, 1965. So 7-8 years later, like Inoki and Cox hit it off well enough that he remembered this guy. He says, I'm going to bring this guy in. Once Inoki had his own company, he remembered Killer Carl Cox. So he wrestled him quite a bit in Texas right there, and obviously made that connection. He then went off to Tennessee. He worked for Nick Goulas. So apparently he was making too much money in Texas and decided to go work for Nick. So on to Tennessee. Where the payoffs were small, but nevertheless, you got a lot of good experience. He was Kanji Inoki again. Now he's starting to get away from some of those, uglier names that they would give guys back then. So here he teamed with Hiro Matsuda. Now, Hiro Matsuda is one of the big trainers in championship wrestling from Florida. Hiro Matsuda is instrumental in training a lot of those great wrestlers that came through the Florida territory. So he would go up against the Infernos, the Medics. He was a tag team wrestler at this point, so he's cutting his teeth there in tag team wrestling. He feuded with Eddie Graham and Sam Steamboat over the Mid-American version of the NWA tag team title. So you got, Eddie Graham from Florida, Sam Steamboat. You had Hiro Matsuda, and again, Matsuda ended up going with Eddie to Florida. So.
Not quite a murderer's row of talent, but pretty close.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty good. And, the Infernos were one of the great teams and things. So now he's wrestled some of these great stars like Harley Race, 2 different world heavyweight champions, Pat Patterson, and those 2 champions being Pat O'Connor and Gene Kiniski. The Destroyer, of course, is one of the all-time most famous. He moved to Japan and lived there and raised his kids in Japan. That's how much the Destroyer got tied in with Japanese wrestling. Met some of his early foreign stars during that run. And then, he went back to Japan after 1965, having made all these connections, had all these experiences. So now he's got great experience against some great tag teams, the Infernos, the Medics, the Assassins. He's wrestled world champions. The Antonio Inoki that went back to Japan was very different and much improved than the one that left. And when he came back, he actually returned with Tokyo Pro Wrestling, another company that came up. There was a wrestler named Tayono Bori. He was a JWA star who was under Ricky Dozan. He wanted to be a top guy. He left JWA and formed Tokyo Pro Wrestling. Katsuhisa Shibata, yes, Katsuyori Shibata's father. Wow. Russia Kimura, who would be a star going all through the 70s and into the 80s for IWE and All Japan. And Inoki were the top stars. Once he got back there, he feuded with Johnny Valentine, Stan Stasiak, WWF champion for a while, Johnny Powers, who was the NWF champion in the territory that ran around Ohio and in a little bit into Michigan. That NWF title would become a key part of the puzzle for the early days of New Japan. So now he's left with Tayono Bori and become one of the top guys of a company. So he left as the guy that, he ain't Baba. Comes back, he's now one of the biggest stars of a rival company. However, Tokyo Pro didn't quite last. There were a lot of things outside of the ring. It drew crowds. It wasn't that the thing didn't draw crowds, but there were a lot of issues among the partners, and the business just kind of went under, not because they weren't drawing, but just because nobody could get along with each other on top, and the whole kind of business broke up. He ended up going back to JWA, but that excursion and that time with Tokyo Pro brought him to a level he had never been before. Now he and Baba were the clear number 1 and number 2, and you could have an argument over who was there. It was really 1A and 1B.
Okay.
So going forward from there, JWA actually ended up with 2 national TV shows. It's possible they took over Tokyo Pro's slot, right? Mm-hmm. Well, now they had 2 shows. What they did was they really made Baba the top guy on one of them and Inoki the top guy on the other. So now you have these 2 guys both headlining a weekly show, and they were the number 1 tag team, babyface tag team, Baba and Inoki. So again, we talked about how those guys' careers intertwined. It shows you how important that excursion could be. It's not just a matter of just getting ring time. It's making key connections and getting in the ring with top guys and really learning your craft, so that when you come back to where you came from, suddenly you're a much improved guy. You kind of know you've been in the ring with some of the best in the world. You've learned things, and you can be perceived as a top star instead of a guy who might do something underneath this big tall guy that we got. Changed Inoki the trajectory of his career altogether, and Inoki also got a little bit of a taste of running a company with Tokyo Pro. And he liked it, so that would
definitely
lead to things down the road. And
so,
like I said, you could go on for hours upon hours about Inoki, but I wanted to, since Ren Narita is coming back, Hikuleo is back, we just had this tribute. I thought show you how important an excursion can be in a man's career. Inoki's a wonderful example of that. And as we kind of go through the rest of this year and this 50th anniversary year, we'll talk a little bit more about Inoki too. So much more to come on him. It can just fill books and books.
After watching that tribute and just being reminded of how special Inoki was, I'm really looking forward to more of this, man. I'm looking forward to this. Why don't we wrap this up? Give me your socials.
It is Stephen Conway 88 at Twitter, and then also my history site is ringsidereplay.com. What's yours?
I am Jerry Finestone at Twitter. You can find me there talking about pro wrestling, Star Wars, X-Men, and basically any politics that I had to mouth off on. And don't forget to subscribe to our Patreon at Fight Game Media. $5 a month, and you get a number of shows in there. The Fight Game podcast. You get Write That Down. You get the Dynamite show. Are there other shows that I'm missing? The 5-Star Joshi show?
5-Star Joshi's on Patreon a lot. Yeah, absolutely. Plus you get all the other shows. In the Clinch, yeah.
We got In the Clinch. And then there are a number of free shows like ours that you can find on YouTube along with Power Bomb shows. You'd be able to sample another few shows like Brace for Impact with Mike Gilbert and JD Oliva. The free show is uploaded every week. And then we have a Patreon exclusive show with extra footage on there. So that's pretty exciting. There's just a lot to do. And we're really passionate about what we do here. We love wrestling and we love sharing it with you. So if you think $5 a month is worth a cup of coffee and also worth talking about wrestling while you listen to it, give us a shot. We won't let you down.
There you go. And with that in mind, we're going to sign off for this week. We'll be back to talk more about the beginning of this TV title tournament and all the news, issues, and events that spring up around New Japan Pro Wrestling. So for Jeremy Finestone, I'm Stephen Conway. Thank you so much for watching Speaking of Strong Style, and we'll see you very soon.